is a place. A place that belongs to all of us. A place with a beauty all its own. A place graced by the presence of trailblazers, from Winston Churchill to the Dalai Lama, Audrey Hepburn to Masai Ujiri and the Toronto Raptors. Visionaries, leaders, artists, storytellers, athletes. Those who come here with purpose, with lifetimes packed full of experience and unique perspectives. Not all were in the history books, not everyone a household name, but every voice important. This is a place that has the power to connect us all. A place that leaves us inspired, stirred, and most importantly, thinking differently. It's the go-to place for conversations that matter. And while this place has no fixed address, it is here, on this stage, at this podium, that our most valuable national resource lives: open dialogue. Join us here as we share the ideas that drive this nation forward. Join us in this place. Welcome to the club, the Empire Club of Canada.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sir Popat, the Chair of the Board of the Empire Club of Canada, and your host for today's event. To formally begin, I want to acknowledge that we are gathering on the traditional and treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the homelands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. I encourage you all to learn more about the traditional territory on which you work and live. Now, today's event would not be possible without the generous support of our incredible sponsors. The Empire Club is a nonprofit organization, and our sponsors generously support the club and make these events possible and complimentary for our online viewers to attend. So please join me in thanking our lead sponsors, who are our lead season sponsors, Bruce Power and Hydro One. Thank you. Thank you to our VIP reception sponsors, Enbridge, Food and Beverage Ontario, Leuna, and Waste Connections of Canada, who are also pleased we are also pleased to thank as our VIP reception season sponsor. Thank you. Sorry, and that includes our Provincial Building and Construction Trades Council of Ontario. We also deeply appreciate the ongoing support of our lead season sponsors. In addition to Bruce Power and Hydro One, we have National Bank Financial Markets. Thank you. And our VIP reception season sponsors, Ellis Don, McKinsey & Company, the Ontario Road Builders Association, and Waste Connections of Canada. Thank you. And finally, thank you to our media sponsor, the Toronto Star, and our AV partner, Bespoke Audiovisual. Now, if you have questions for our speakers, please scan the QR code found on your program or through the Q&A function if you're online. For those of you online, if you require technical assistance, please use the chat feature. Now, I think we all know that Ontario is in a major period of transition. The signs are all around us. Global economic headwinds, market dynamics, and labor uncertainty are all key priorities. While at the same time, disruptive innovation is creating both uncertainty and opportunities, while governments, including Ontario, are forging ahead with some of the biggest infrastructure investments and interprovincial trade and mobility in a generation. This hinge moment of accelerating the building of Canada is truly historic and very, very exciting. But none of this can happen without people. Our workforce is the engine behind every project, every innovation, and the priorities that matter most to Canadians. That urgency has helped shape a huge portion of the national conversation this year, and it is one reason why we're here today. As we close out the 2025 calendar year here at the Empire Club and look back at this year and the important conversations that have explored how Canada's economy, infrastructure, AI future, and talent pipeline are evolving, we anticipate that many of these conversations will continue in 2026 and beyond. Our podium here continues to provide an opportunity to delve into conversations that require ongoing dialogue and important reflection. In fact, just last year, Minister Piccini shared Ontario's blueprint for a more agile and responsive labor force. This year's discussion with the Minister builds on that work at a moment when demand for skilled trades is accelerating, when technology is reshaping job requirements, and when internationally trained workers need faster, clearer pathways to contribute, including earn while you learn, as the Minister has said. So putting it all together, this feels like the right moment to ask what a nation-building workforce looks like and how Ontario plans to prepare our labor force for the opportunities ahead. Before we begin, I want to thank our event and season sponsor, Bruce Power, for supporting conversations that move this province forward. As one of Ontario's largest employers and a recognized leader in developing young talent, building apprenticeship pathways, and expanding career opportunities across STEM and the skilled trades, Bruce Power embodies the commitment required to build the workforce of the future. Please join me in welcoming Joseph Mancinelli, LiUNA International Vice President and Canadian Director and Chair of the LiUNA Pension Fund of Central and Eastern Canada, to offer introductory remarks and to welcome Minister Piccini on behalf of Bruce Power. Joseph.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A pleasure to be with all of you. Many of you have been at the Empire Club in the past, and I've had the opportunity to be here listening to so many engaging speakers that continue to drive our province and country forward. Today, I have the honor of introducing a very dynamic minister and speaker that I'm sure that you'll be delighted to hear from. I want to take this opportunity to thank Bruce Power for giving me the opportunity on their behalf to introduce Minister Piccini. I don't work for Bruce Power, but however, I work very closely with one of our largest employers in Canada. The plant is the largest nuclear plant on the planet, and employs actually thousands and thousands of skilled workers in the province of Ontario. Now, getting to our guest speaker here today, when McNaughton resigned as Minister of Labor, Skills Development, and Immigration, the very first phone call I got that day was from David Piccini, and he told me that he was being appointed as Minister of Labor, Skills Development, and Immigration. And throughout the conversation that I had with him that day, it was obvious that he was going to be such a committed minister by his level of enthusiasm and the things that he wanted to achieve. And during his time as minister, he's been able to transform the energy that he has and enthusiasm that he has into numerous pieces of legislation that can tackle some of the most important issues that our employers and also the workers face in the construction industry in particular, and in numerous other industries across Ontario. And since that time, he has enacted not only one act for workers, working for workers, but 7 different pieces of legislation that are workers for workers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 that tackle a number of very important issues that we all face in the industry, from skills development, shortages of labor in a number of different sectors, occupational health and safety issues that need to be enhanced. We want to make sure, and the minister wants to make sure, that workers that go out to work in the morning come back healthy at the end of the day. Minister Piccini has showed an extraordinary dedication to these issues that are transforming Ontario into a powerhouse employment sector, but a sector that cares about its workers, making sure that those workers do come home to their families, but not only that, that we have high levels of productivity as well. Now, all of this can be achieved with strong partnerships. And the minister does believe in that by working very closely with our contractors, with our employers, with a number of our largest industries as well, and working with the different unions in the trades as well, and a number of different sectors as well. Now, let me deal with the elephant in the room as well. Skills Development Fund is an exceptional fund. It's a fund that has helped so many young people get trained and retrained, and it is changing lives. Now, to say that that fund is a fund created as a quid pro quo for unions like LiUNA because we endorse the Premier is absolutely ridiculous, because we basically endorsed the Premier far before the capital grants even were enacted. And so that's pretty ridiculous. To say that grants have been given to training centers because of a quid pro quo with the Premier or with the Ford government is absolute nonsense, because one of the comments I heard was, well, you're creating jobs for LiUNA. LiUNA does not get jobs. We work at construction jobs. We don't get them. Our contractors bid on them and get the work, not us. So it's pretty ludicrous, some of the things that I've heard, and the attacks, the unfounded attacks that have been focused and thrown at Minister Piccini and the Premier. And words like corruption are words that should never be spoken in the legislature, and quite frankly, those who are speaking those are the corrupt people that are ruining this province. So, ladies and gentlemen, the advances that have been made by the Ford government, and in particular in labor, in skills development, and in immigration, which is a huge topic nowadays, because most of the folks that are involved in skills development, and many of you in this room are, understand how important that is, but we can't achieve our goals without having a very strong immigration program in Canada as well that brings in folks that want to do some of the skills that are required. And I've said it and I'll say it again, that our immigration department in Ottawa should be acting like an HR department, bringing in only people that we need right now. If it's the healthcare sector, that's who should be bringing in. If it's construction trades, that's who we should be bringing in. And Minister Piccini has become a champion on ensuring that Canada gets to that point, but Ontario gets its fair share of the folks that are coming in that want to do the work that is so desperately needed in this province. So everything that he has touched, whether it be skills development, we have never seen an advancement in skills development like we have seen under his leadership. Labor legislation that has changed the landscape of labor legislation in Ontario in such a positive way, not only for labor, but also for our employer partners. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to stop there and introduce to you one of the most dynamic labor ministers that we have had, one of the best skills and development, by far, ministers in the province of Ontario, and the immigration minister as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome David Piccini, our minister.
Thank you all. Thank you for being here today. Joe, thank you for that kind introduction and all you do for LiUNA and the skilled trades. Through Joe's leadership, we have systemically broken down barriers for youth and underrepresented groups entering the trades, promoting meaningful pathways, not just for a job, but for a career. Thank you for your leadership, Joe. I want to also thank Board Chair Poppet as well. I want to acknowledge my parliamentary assistant, Mohammed Firin, who is here today. Mo is such a dynamic MPP, and I'm honored to work alongside him on the labor portfolio. Board members who are here today, CEO Kent, Emerson and staff, and of course, everyone who sponsored today's event. Thank you very much, and let's give it up for all of them. Thank you for inviting me here to speak today for today's packed event. I'm joined by members from my ministry, by members of agencies of the Ministry of Labour, Immigration, Training and Skills Development. I'm grateful for their commitment, their guidance, and their ongoing work for Ontarians. I'm honored to be here with you all today. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day. We're coming together in a moment of great uncertainty. In the last 5 years, we have come through a global pandemic, only to find ourselves today in a trade war with our closest ally. As Labour Minister, my job is to think about and protect and champion the workers of our great province. COVID changed people's perspectives about how and where they work. The trade war has men and women in key sectors of our economy fearful for their jobs. These two events have shown us we must rethink how and when we train, how we can support a resilient workforce that will withstand whatever is thrown our way. For employers, this uncertainty, quite simply, is bad for business. As challenging as today is, it is also a moment of potential because our nation has a history of overcoming challenges. From our unity of purpose in 1867 to Canada's coming of age in April 1917, when all 4 Canadian divisions fought together at Vimy for the first time in World War I. When we come together with purpose and focus and drive, Canada as a nation succeeds. Some may suggest that now is the time to turn inward, to reinforce locally as opposed to fortifying nationally. My thesis to you that the two are intimately intertwined. There is no provincial success without national prosperity. And there's no Canadian prosperity without a productive Ontario as its engine, as its heartbeat. Our strength abroad is anchored in our opportunity at home, if we can recapture the common purpose that we collectively share. We've gotten away from building things. Think to the Canadian Pacific Railway, the Trans-Canada Highway. I'd submit to you that we did not lose our ability. We've never lost our ability. We lost our ambition. And one of the ways the government can respond is by establishing a clear vision to build a stronger and more productive Ontario. And boy, has Premier Ford and this government committed with over $200 billion invested into infrastructure. And that's why we're having a national conversation, of course, about nation building. The reality is that for far too long, we've handcuffed ourselves as a country by allowing provincial borders to become barriers. You know, Queen's University released a report earlier this year that stated that Canada's internal trade barriers are equivalent to a 7% tariff on goods moving between our provinces. Simply put, this means Canadians pay more for everyday products. How can we negotiate with one of the most powerful nations on planet Earth when we divide ourselves into 13 provinces and territories? You know, we're not red provinces, blue provinces, orange provinces. The Premier often reflects on that. We're a united federation. We are a united Canada. But that unity is undercut when it takes less time to ship goods across the Atlantic than it does for a worker from British Columbia to start working in Ontario. We can cross oceans faster than we can work across provincial borders. This cannot continue to be the status quo as we build a nation ready to withstand uncertain economic headwinds. We have to achieve one Canadian economy, but that cannot be done, of course, without one Canadian workforce. Today, I will outline for you our government's plan to strengthen and support this workforce right here in Ontario. You have to have the political will to think big and to follow it up with tangible action locally. By every measure, we're doing this in Ontario. During tough economic times, it's essential we have the civil projects ready in whose shadows future generations will work and live. And I love the community I represent, so I just want to reference that for a moment. You know, you think to less sexy projects, underground. We don't see underground infrastructure every day as we do a new hospital, something we're building in my community. But I think to the twinning of the trunks, the tunneling and the work that's being done in the trenches, shoring there along in Cobourg, it's providing opportunity for new homes. I think to the new wastewater treatment plant in my community of Brighton, which is giving that council the ability not just to plan in a 4-year election cycle, but to plan for a generation. Often politicians don't think beyond a 4-year election cycle. Our government is setting up our workforce for success for years to come. And there are 3 pillars to that strategy. 1, you have to build a pipeline of talent to deliver on nation-building projects. 2, you have to train at every age, in every sector, to ensure our world-class workforce remains competitive today, tomorrow, and always. And 3, you have to create the conditions that will ensure full labor participation and drive productivity. So first, let's talk about building that pipeline of talent. And that starts when people enter the workforce. This happens for youth often with their first summer job. I think to co-op positions. I think to Ontario's youth apprenticeship program or a job placement after a pre-apprenticeship program. 1/3 of people in the skilled trades are over the age of 55. And we know we will need over 70,000 construction jobs in the years to come. And it's more important than ever before to ensure that our next generation realizes the incredible opportunity to build something, to look across our skyline, having contributed to the buildings that populate its canvas. We know from the Government of Ontario's commissioned Youth Advisors Report that more than 15% of respondents said there was a negative reaction or stigma from peers, parents, or educators associated with pursuing a career in the skilled trades. More concerning was that half cited lack of awareness about careers in the sector or how to pursue an apprenticeship. It's like all of us wanting to start a car, but nobody having the keys to the ignition. And that's why I expanded Level Up career fairs over the past 2 years. What are they? They're a series of dynamic, multi-day fairs that bring together the best of our skilled trades professionals from around Ontario to run interactive booths for students in grades 7 to 12. Youth have an opportunity to meet people, to get hands-on experience, to understand what a career in the skilled trades can mean. This year, we've already had more than 34,000 students attend. And we still have 7 more days of them in Kingston, Ottawa, and in Northern Ontario. And since I became minister, we've also introduced evening open houses. Why do we do that? Because to fully address the perception problem, we have to reach parents and grandparents too. We need to show them how proud we are of the skilled trades and how proud they can be too. It's working. Today we have the highest number of youth registered in an apprenticeship in a decade. In a decade. Last year alone, that was more than 13,000 youth. This year to date, over 61% of all registered apprentices are youth. I've seen some of them here today. And today, we have more women registered in an apprenticeship than at any time in modern history. And this hits home for me locally when a grandmother came up to me at the Legion in Cobourg and told me her granddaughter came home with a spark in her eye. after attending a Level Up career fair. And she said that her granddaughter said, "I can't wait to get into the trades." She said, "Thank you for showing her what is possible." That is where I spend my Friday nights, at the Coburg Legion for the meat draw. It's fantastic, highly recommend. But this is such a powerful thing, talking with these grandparents, shifting perceptions, inspiring dreams, one student at a time. We also announced an additional $159 million in Budget 2025 to increase the number of training spots available. We're increasing training spots for doctors, increasing training spots for nurses, and we're also increasing training spots for men and women, for youth, for people in the skilled trades. We've waived classroom fees for level 1 apprentices. And we got rid of the exam fee, too. I don't recall having to pay an additional fee when I was at university to write my exam, so we got rid of them. We inherited a system that normalized a multi-year wait to get your in-class training done in the skilled trades. And those days are quickly becoming numbered. When a tradesperson has to wait 16 to 24 months to start their level 1, that's years of lost productivity on nuclear, on home construction, on key infrastructure. And I will not accept that amidst an ongoing uncertainty, amidst our economic landscape. And this leads me to my second point. The global pandemic, the tariff war, and increase in AI has shown us the need to build a resilient workforce, and we do this through embracing lifelong learning. Training at any age. Ontario was the first province to make micro-credentials eligible for student financial assistance, something I worked on when I was parliamentary assistant at colleges and universities. And it's my job as a public policymaker to create the legislative and regulatory conditions to support this rapid training. This is why we are also taking an aggressive approach to building and expanding training centers in every corner of this great province. In Bill 30, I introduced legislative measures that will help build training centers faster. When a training center takes 6 months to get a permit for a sign, or over a year to get a building permit, that is simply unacceptable. To tackle our declining productivity, we must take bold action. I know that'll rub some people the wrong way, but we must take bold action. In the words of the local business manager in Windsor, he said the longer it takes to get a permit, it's more lost jobs, more lost careers, more lost revenue for the municipality, for the province, and for the country. So well said. Through this bill, we have laid the foundation to streamline elements of the building and permitting process. Simply put, this means expanding training capacity in every corner of Ontario, which I think we can all agree is good public policy. And through our Skills Development Fund, we are recognizing the importance of rapid training that can occur beyond the classroom. That is a fundamental recognition that to support a resilient workforce means providing opportunities to upskill at any age. From shop floors to manufacturing lines, hotel hallways to long-term care facilities, workers are getting trained in every industry through this government's investments. And no one's being left behind. No one. Let's take a look at some specific examples. Crime continues to be a concern for so many Ontarians. But that's why groups like Oaks Revitalization, who are here today, are working on the front lines to support justice-affected and involved people, reducing recidivism. They are helping people like Lewis, who's here today, whom I had the distinct privilege to meet when he was completing his training. And these are the most special moments as minister that far beat any announcement. Early on a cold morning 2 weeks ago, I visited a BridgeCon site on Rosedale Valley Road in Toronto where they're repairing a bridge. They're doing remarkable work at extreme heights. And who did I see? Took his mask off. There was Lewis, who turned obstacles into opportunity. Lewis, you stand as an inspiration for me today. Thank you. But it's more than construction. It's places like Melly's Market and Cafe. On the surface, one might wonder why we would fund a coffee shop, especially when traditional scoring metrics may not prioritize it for an investment. But visit Melly's and see the incredible work they're doing to build hard and soft skills for people with disabilities, and you see why. More importantly, you see the faces of the parents You meet them. You meet the parents and their family members who tell me this opportunity has given purpose to their child's life, linked them with employers like the LCBO, giving them their first ever paycheck and a career with benefits. And this is what I mean when I say we are giving everyone an opportunity to contribute to Ontario's economic success. We lose as a province when we don't unlock the economic potential of people of all abilities. To maintain our competitive advantage, I've outlined for you steps we're taking to create more spots for people at the starting line, but also meaningful training opportunities in every sector to support them throughout the race. That is how we'll cross the finish line first. Finally, it's about creating the conditions for everyone to put their hands on the building blocks that will form the foundation of our nation's future. I reflect on something that was told to me by Natasha Ferguson, who's also here today. She said to me, the challenges women face in this industry go beyond skills or dedication. It's about working in environments that are not always built with us in mind. To create those environments, we've worked with all of you to take bold action for underrepresented groups and women. Through Working for Workers, this is something we're now in our 8th version, as Joe mentioned. Soon more than books of Harry Potter. They keep coming. But in all seriousness, it's our line in the sand, saying to workers every year, we are committed to you, we see you, and will bring forward progressive pieces of legislation. Those vignettes will tell your story. We've introduced more legislation for the workers of this province than over the 15 years between 2003 and 2018. This is progressive legislation that is creating the conditions for everyone to prosper. Let's talk about what's been in those pieces of legislation. Ontario was the first in Canada to require properly fitted personal protective equipment for all body types. Visit any job site and talk to, in particular, young women on the job sites, and you'll see why that's so important. We were the first in Canada to require defibrillator on large job sites, defibrillators. When seconds save lives, and we heard the speaker there from the Mikey Network, he was a young worker from GFL who collapsed, told his foreman, I'm experiencing chest pains, walked across the road to drive himself to the hospital, collapsed on the floor, real story. A paramedic happened to be driving by at the time, and when he woke up, he had a defibrillator on his chest. He said it was his dad looking down on him. But we shouldn't leave it to happenstance. That's why we're mandating defibrillators on job sites. We're also the first to put naloxone kits on job sites, on high-risk sites. You read, yesterday when I was at Provincial Building Trades, Jim shared with me Labour's Lost, a phenomenal piece in the Globe and Mail. Read that piece and you will see why the work Ontario has done is so, so critical. But what I'm most proud of with defibrillators, with naloxone kits, is the thousands of people we have trained to use it. For that mom or dad who are at the hockey rink later in the evening, they've been trained to use the defibrillator. These are all first to create the legislative and regulatory framework to ensure full participation in our nation-building workforce. And that brings us to this moment, a moment when we have 3 major nuclear expansions underway, from Darlington to Bruce to Wesleyville in my own community. 18,000 jobs with the SMR, over 30,000 with Pickering refurbishment, over 100,000 when you factor in new nuclear. This is generating upwards of $500 billion in GDP and will create, as I said, over 100,000 good-paying jobs in the construction sector. And it wasn't long ago where others were saying to shut down nuclear, to put those workers out of work, to give them pink slips. No. Ontario, Canada, will lead the world in clean energy. We will be an energy superpower under this government's leadership. This is also a moment where we're mining the critical minerals in Northern Ontario, creating more than 10,000 jobs and contributing $20 billion to our GDP. As Environment Minister, I signed off on the terms of reference for Martin Falls and Webequie. These are communities that will not just benefit from the jobs, but from the added social services, converting diesel communities with sustainable, clean energy, bringing healthcare, bringing opportunity. And that's not to mention the LNG expansion in Kitimat, or the North Coast Transmission Line, and other major projects that are right around the corner. We can't sit passively by. We have to ensure the conditions are available for workers to participate in these projects from coast to coast to coast. So we've taken action. We've introduced the most ambitious as-of-right credential recognition framework in modern history. We are the first in Canada to do that. That means credential recognition within 10 business days, letting workers start work as a right while they complete their full registration over the following 6 months. This will impact more than 50 regulators and over 300 certifications, with all regulators reporting annual data so we can monitor implementation. And we recognize that navigating this process is complicated. So we've introduced measures to standardize what can be asked for, so we never forget who we are here to serve, the people. Whether you are a worker in another province or a newcomer, navigating the system has to be easier. And if the rules aren't followed, we've introduced an administrative monetary penalty framework with penalties of up to $100,000 where there is repeated noncompliance. And now, of course, we're embarking on another historic first, national harmonization for health and safety certifications. We can't have workers building an east-west pipeline having to recertify 3 times along the way. It's a disservice to them, their families that rely on their paycheck, and the communities we are supporting with these projects. Working alongside Ontario's Chief Prevention Officer, I spent the summer and fall talking to unions, to contractors, health and safety associations, and experts to identify opportunities to harmonize across Canada certifications like working at heights, entry-level to construction, trenching and shoring, hoisting and rigging, supervisor training. We know from data collected on workplace injuries that falls from height continue to drive lost injury time in Ontario, and we're working with major contractors on looking at Type 2 hard hats in the new year. And we know from labor market data that we are in desperate need of construction supervisors. The old saying goes, rising tides lift all boats. Having national standards in place allow workers to work safely from coast to coast to coast. And I look forward to updating all of you on progress in the very soon coming months. And that's really what today is all about, progress. Our progress as a nation towards something never previously contemplated in recent history. We've heard a lot about one Canadian economy, but I want you to envision today, and I hope I've helped shed some light on that, one Canadian workforce. A workforce that doesn't back down in the face of threats, but instead rises to the occasion. Because the battlefield for our economic future isn't one with tanks and bombers or heavy artillery. It will be fought on the streets we build, the high-rises we construct, the energy independence we develop, the critical mining projects we bring to life. And that fight is not just in the skilled trades. It's in the long-term care homes whose workers will always care for our aging population, or the hospitality sector that continues to show why Ontario is a place that we need to discover. Thank the men and women here working in that sector, serving you here today. And you're not alone in that fight, because this government, this Premier, this Minister of Labour are ready to fight with you. Because we can't do it with you, and I can tell you for a fact that we never want to. Now is the time when we need to come together, putting partisan stripes aside, to reclaim Canada's ambition, to set our sights on nation building. Thank you very much for having me here today.
Thank you, Minister, for that bold and innovative agenda and vision for our great province. Thank you. To guide today's discussion, we're joined by someone who understands how to take a complex policy topic and turn it into a clear, engaging conversation. Amanda Galbraith is a partner at Oyster Group and one of the country's most respected voices in strategic communications. She has more than 2 decades under her belt, from journalism to government and consulting, giving her a rare ability to see issues from every angle, political, public, and practical. Many of you will know her from her show on the Bell Media iHeart Radio Talk Network, where she hosts Free for All Friday, bringing thoughtful analysis to national conversations each week. She's also a regular commentator on CBC's Power and Politics and Toronto's News Talk 1010, where her perspective is sought after by audiences across the country. Amanda has advised leaders at every level of government, including in the Prime Minister's office and at Toronto City Hall. That experience gives her a deep understanding of how policy decisions land in boardrooms, job sites, and communities, exactly the lens that we want for a conversation today about Ontario's workforce, training system, and economic trajectory. Please join me in welcoming today's moderator, Amanda Galbraith.
Well, my mother clearly wrote that introduction, so. Minister, thanks so much for sitting down to talk about this today. Obviously, lots of interest in you and the issue. I'm going to speaking of the elephant in the room, let's talk about Skills Development Fund. You know, your government's, there's a lot of controversy about the program. There's controversy about your government's response. It's $2.5 billion, so it's a huge investment from your government, right? We just heard you speak lengthily about how passionate you are about the program. So for our audience, for folks who maybe haven't heard it, and I think a more thoughtful, direct way from you, just tell us, like, given all the headlines, all the news, all the crazy stories we're hearing, what is actually happening behind the scenes from your perspective?
Thanks, Amanda. Well, I think let's start with its genesis and its origins. Let's think back, and I know it's something we don't always really want to do, but we think about the pandemic. This is literally a time when we were carving social bubbles that split families apart. People were working from home. We were wondering, would we ever be back in the office? So the government created a fund that would kickstart our economy. It was one of the recommendations made in the Future of Work report. And that was very broad in nature, but broad by design, because of course you have to invest in various sectors of the economy, and you know, from hospitality, which they said would take the longest to recover, to literally every sector. So it was by design quite broad in nature. And then since then has evolved to really take a much more focused approach. And I think the Auditor General recognized that in her report. It's all about outcomes, right? Outcomes at its core. 100,000 people who achieved employment within 60 days or less. I mean, tell me a program in government that's having that transformative impact on underemployed or unemployed. And then through rounds 4 and 5, when I came in with this program, we made a series of changes that have, I think, strengthened the program. And I acknowledge, you know, continuous improvement is something that we always have to do, but I think the goals of that project, of the program, have narrowed to focus on skilled trades. We introduce Indigenous youth, for example. The skilled trades piece was, of course, so big when you consider the government's priority of our infrastructure commitments, the hospitals, the schools, the bridges, the roads, the critical minerals we have to do. So we evolved the program, and we've added additional focused outcomes that we want to see. We've strengthened elements of it through financial audit requirements and through additional measures to report through our centralized employment management system. That's another thing that I brought in, which tracks long-term outcomes at 6, 9, and 12 months. So these are important things that I think we all want to know when we spend a taxpayer dollar, that it's leading to employment outcomes. And the Auditor General did acknowledge the strength of the KPIs of the program.
Yeah, and I want to just put the Auditor General's questions to you, right, directly, because I know you get it in the legislature, but there's a theater to that is not, I think, reflective of how you want to speak about it. So one of the concerns the AG raised is, and what we've heard a lot about, is why lower scoring programs or submissions were awarded over higher ranked submissions. So can you tell us a little bit about that decision process and what you're seeing that maybe we're not seeing in the media and the public?
Yeah, and I think this really stems, first off, I want to say, I have never skirted ministerial accountability. I am accountable as minister for the decisions that we make as a government. And those decisions have stemmed, as I've said, from broad government priorities. I think to certain things that you might not necessarily see in the evaluation formula, which are the broad discussions I have at the cabinet table, a new nuclear development that we'll discuss at the cabinet table and then ultimately announce in Wesleyville. Things like President Trump's inauguration, which happened midway through one of the evaluation rounds, We've since incorporated that into the next round, tariff-affected sectors of the economy. Other things like geographic distribution to make sure, I take pride in making sure we're funding in every corner of Ontario, and it's not just downtown Toronto. And I think when I've visited some of these places, I think to some smaller training locals in Northern Ontario, who perhaps don't have experience. I mean, Joe mentioned this is the first time we've made a public policy decision, which we took to the people and campaigned on, to invest in training in every corner of Ontario. They might not have the sophistication to write a government application, but we want to make sure it's accessible for everyone. So these are some of the things I look at when we make decisions that are reflective of every sector of Ontario's economy, every corner of this great province that we want to unleash, and these are some of the things I look at.
Okay. So if you could say, I'm not trying to paraphrase, but you would maybe argue that the design of the program and how people are accessing it or applying for it, does that need to be addressed or fixed? Is that some of the accountability mechanisms you're putting in place going forward?
Yes, we've accepted the Auditor General's full recommendations, and she spoke to programmatic KPIs and to strengthening that within the program. And remember, I mean, this program hadn't been touched until I became minister in terms of those changes, and I accept that and want to implement additional changes. As I said, I did with the U.S. tariffs piece being something we look at now, the skilled trades being a target sector in our updated guidelines. Again, all of that's public for folks to see online. When we're out in opportunities like today and when we travel the province, we hear about challenges. And I think that's why after every round, we've got to commit to continuous improvement. Wage subsidies was something that wasn't incorporated until midway through. But this gave people, the hardest to place individuals into jobs, who are the most likely to drop away, perhaps, when you have to take time off work to go train. But if you can get your bus pass paid for, if you can have a wage subsidy that supports you through hands-on learning that you achieve on a job site, these are ways we can keep people and not lose them and truly give opportunities to everyone. And it's been a game changer. Again, impact, 100,000 people employed within 60 days or less. Stories like some of the ones I mentioned today, who are helping create a real dynamic face for the next generation of skilled trades.
So just to kind of wrap this up then, what do you think people aren't hearing then out there? Because Mr. Mantelli spoke very passionately about this program, right? I watched you up on stage speak very passionately about this program. I've worked with politicians a lot who sometimes really care about their issues, and sometimes they're reading the speech because they're told what to do. Mm-hmm. You clearly get up and care and want to be out on the job site. So why are people not hearing a benefit of the program, what's happening behind the scenes? What do you wish you could convey?
Well, I think a few things. One, I would say, this is a big shift, folks, in Ontario. The micro-credentials piece, the rapid training. This is a recognition that important training occurs in universities and colleges and classrooms. And we've partnered with colleges to the tune of over $350 million in the last round alone in SDF. But that we have to rethink how we do it. I see a number of colleges here today who are rethinking how they have those talent pipelines to employers. This government, for the first time in Ontario's history, has a significant fund designed to support rapid training that is truly inclusive of all sectors. And, I think, I wish we'd hear more of the stories. We have tried, we've shared them. They don't necessarily always get reported on. I've often highlighted in the legislature, which is a bit of theater, to be honest. But I signed up for this, and I know you're going to face it. And I respect the fact that the opposition, with the Auditor General's report, they have every right to ask tough questions. But not once have they actually told the story of a worker. Not once. Not once have they actually cited a college or union training hall that they've actually visited. And this program's having an impact. And whether it's hospitality workers whom I've met, Hospitality Unite here, I met a young woman who was literally living on the streets and is now, through the Skills Development Fund, got a job. And she said, David, I have dignity of purpose, And I think these are transforming. Lewis's story, who's here today, giving people a second chance. We can just talk about incarceration, about policing, but I would like to actually target the concern of crime in communities like mine, justice affected and involved youth, adults, and actually take them from that life, give them a set of skills, and give them a job. And that's what this fund's doing.
Earlier was mentioned when you took over as Minister of Labour, your first phone call was to some of your stakeholders, I would imagine. When you took, I knew you when you were at Environment. When you took this job on, is this what you expected it to be like? Like, are you enjoying it? Like, what's the biggest surprise so far in the role?
You know, it's been so rewarding. I love representing my community of Northumberland, Peterborough South. And that's really your litmus test. When you go home on a weekend, on a Friday, you're in the food basics right across from my constituency office. You really hear the things that are concerning everyday Ontarians. So that's why I got involved to serve, to make sure rural Ontario is not left behind, and I've never lost sight of that. The environment was amazing. I love that portfolio. We brought in new provincial parks, tough sulfur dioxide regs, extended producer responsibility for the Blue Box program and others. I don't want to go down that road. We'd need another Empire Club speech. But we did some really progressive things. But what I love about Labour is it's grounded in humanity. Yeah. It's grounded in the stories of people. And having the chance to impact them. I'll be the first to say, you know, as a politician, I'm far from perfect. You've had your challenging days. We've had challenging months. I would say without question the most challenging has been when folks loop in your wife and family. It's been challenging, but I've enjoyed the team I work with. I enjoy the fact that, and I didn't mention this in my speech, but we've passed those Working for Workers bills with unanimous consent quite often. Our last bill, Bill 60, to build training centers faster, that had a voice vote, unanimous consent of the legislature. So you don't see that stuff. You don't see that we're expanding cancer coverage. We're down in Welland, Ontario. Another one of the first phone calls I had when I was Labour Minister with the wife of a deceased firefighter. And it was, you know, MPP Jeff Birch, who I worked with across the aisle. So those are things you don't see, but that's what makes my work rewarding. And I'm open to challenge it, and I'm open to criticism, and I think that sort of constructive criticism makes for better public policy.
You've talked Working for Workers, all your Harry Potter editions of legislation, but they are meaningful. And one of the pieces in your speech, we are committed to you, we see you, and that's part of. So why do you think this government has focused so much on, as some people say, the people that shower at the end of the day, not the beginning? Like, what does that mean to you, and what can we expect going forward?
Well, I think I see it in stories. I think to the Pathways program in communities like my own that have broken down barriers for young women to enter the skilled trades. You know, again, through SDF, I mean, we heard that the traditional conceptualization of funding in classroom didn't necessarily recognize mobile training, and how can we support mobile training trucks that actually can go in to Indigenous communities, can go in to more rural and remote communities. So you always try and adapt to support that, and it's breaking down barriers. And you know, my colleague Charmaine Williams, who's been such a big champion, she says, "See me and be me," and I think this fund, but more importantly, through Working for Workers, I talked about creating the conditions. Premier talks about creating the economic conditions for success. That has to be coupled with creating the labor conditions for everyone to participate. And when you say see me and be me, it means folks that you might not traditionally see in a construction site. And so young women who've broken down those barriers, literally, you know, who are perhaps the first on a job site and tell me, Dave, I was the first woman on this job site. And then the successive generations. And, you know, our labor partners who are in the room tonight, there's so many, they've challenged us. And it's they who've brought these stories forward. It's our educational partners in high school level, college sector. And I think that's exciting. Really, not are we just creating the economic conditions where we're seeing massive investment, but we're creating the labor conditions where everyone can participate in Ontario's economy.
Whenever I've worked with politicians, there's the stuff you see in the headlines, but there's also always, they have hobby horses or things that they're focused on that maybe don't make the front page every day, or not the thing you're talking about in the legislature. You spoke pretty passionately about your portfolio. I can see that. What is the thing you're quietly working on that you're proud of, that you're excited about, that we maybe don't know about and we're going to see next year?
Yeah, I would say one of the things I'm I actually developed a significant interest in, and it doesn't come from a personal story, you know. My wife and I don't have children yet. I know my mom's on my case, but
Careful. Your life is over once it happens, my friend.
I know. I know. Congratulations again. So I haven't seen that, you know, intimately the youth going home, but what I have seen, you know, through groups like Sunny Days Group Program in Brighton is youth with disabilities. And that's not been something intuitively that, you know, in my first few years in office, I have developed a much more profound interest on. And I often reference Melly's, and it's because, honestly, that visit really shaped me. And I think we are a collection of our interactions, and that they shape you. And that, for me, really shaped me when I went and visited the incredible team there and what they're doing. So we're working on some really exciting things to help you know, young adults and youth with all abilities and exceptionalities. And so that's something that I'm really passionate about on a personal note, and will never lose the personal passion for my rural community as well.
There we go. Last question to you as we wrap up here is immigration is in your ministerial title. It is a huge issue. We've talked about, you know, 700 construction jobs are needed in the next few years. How are you interfacing with the huge crisis we're having with immigration? What is Ontario advocating for?
Yeah, good question. First off, you know, I want to say as a grandson of an immigrant, you know, I have a complex family like many others, you know, a grandfather from a Newfoundland outport, a grandfather who immigrated from Italy. You know, immigration needs to bring talent in that is reflective of our labor market needs. High human capital immigration program. Citizenship is a privilege, not a right. And you know, I think to stories like my grandfather's, like so many I've met who want to contribute to the fabric of this nation, we need it. It without question. We need to restore integrity to that system, and that's something the federal government are working on. We just recently renegotiated the Canada-Ontario Immigration Agreement, which has been a big feat, you know, something that we hadn't done in years that we worked on, and we worked on very, very well and closely. We added monumental things like an asylum annex, you know, reflective of the concerns a number of mayors have expressed to me. And, you know, we have to look at things like our capacity through infrastructure, through healthcare, through education, a teacher that's now welcoming, you know, a number of new youth, 5 in a classroom who perhaps don't speak English. And, you know, that adds added complexity on that teacher's day-to-day life. And, you know, these are the sorts of things we have to consider when we're looking at it. So in closing, I would also say, one thing you can look forward to in the end of this year and into 2026 is a reformed Ontario immigration nominee program. That is our ability, Ontario. We have a narrow ability. Our allocation was cut in half to 10,500. We're fighting for greater allocation, greater say like Quebec has. It's in my mandate to fight for that. And I think you can stay tuned for some exciting changes that will incorporate talent pathways. Celebrate entrepreneurship, something we don't do enough of in Canada. People who take risks, who start a business. And then I hear they've invested $100 million and can't find a path to permanency. Executives who want to come over and because of their age, perhaps, can't. And research excellence in the United States, where the research sector is under attack right now, an opportunity to bring that talent into Ontario. So these are some of the things we're working on as a government.
Okay. All right, Minister, we're out of time. We'll bring it back to our host to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Piccini, for your incredible insights and framing today's conversation in both urgency and opportunity. And many thanks to Amanda for providing her expertise in guiding the discussion and bringing forward the perspectives that matter to employers, to workers, and communities across the province. Before we close, we're pleased to hear from a representative of Hydro One. As the backbone of the province's electricity system and another of our province's largest employers, Hydro One plays a vital role in shaping the workforce of the future. Hydro One's investments in apprenticeship programs, Indigenous and community partnerships, and technical training reflect the same commitment we heard throughout this event, preparing workers for the opportunities ahead and supporting the infrastructure that keeps Ontario growing. Please join me in welcoming Lisa Pearson, Executive Vice President of Corporate Affairs at Hydro One, to share our final remarks of the afternoon. Lisa.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister Piccini, for your remarks today and for this interesting and timely discussion. At Hydro One, we see the impact of skilled workers every day. They're the backbone of the electricity system that powers our province. Across Ontario, our 10,000 employees are replacing poles, they're upgrading stations, and they're building new transmission lines to connect communities. They live here, they raise their families here, and they take pride in building a stronger province. That's why we believe the best way to build Ontario is with Ontario talent and Ontario businesses. Last year, more than 93% of our $2.9 billion spend went to Canadian companies, many of them based here in Ontario. Thank you to the Hydro One table that clapped for that. And we're doubling down on our Canadian First procurement plan by prioritizing homegrown businesses and working with industry partners to strengthen Ontario's manufacturing capacity for utility products. The important conversation today is a reminder that Ontario's future depends on a workforce ready to deliver. And that's why we're focused on building the workforce Ontario needs for the future. Through structured training mentorship and technical programs, we're preparing talent for long-term careers in the energy sector. We're investing in people so that they can deliver the power and keep Ontario moving. Thank you again, Minister Piccini. Thank you, Amanda, for the interesting conversation, and thank you to the Empire Club for hosting this discussion about Ontario's workforce and the opportunities ahead. And with that, I'll turn it back to Saurabh to close this out.
Thank you again to our panelists, sponsors, and of course to all of you for joining us here today. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize the students and young leaders joining us here today. Their presence is made possible through the charitable arm of the Empire Club Foundation and the generosity of our donors. To stay connected, please subscribe to our newsletter by scanning the QR code on your tables. We also have an exciting new membership program. Please see our staff at the registration desk for more information. I also hope you'll join us for two upcoming exciting events in the new year. On January 22nd, Alto President and CEO Martin Imblau will outline the bold, high-speed rail vision set to connect 60% of Canada's population and deliver billions in annual economic benefits. And on February 17th, Minister Robert Flack will take on one of Ontario's biggest challenges, the housing crisis. If you care about affordability, investment, or the future of Ontario's communities, this conversation is one you won't want to miss. Tickets for both events are on sale now. And as always, as a club of record, all Empire Club events are available to watch and listen to on our website. The recording of today's event will be available shortly. Thank you everyone, for being a part of this important conversation. On behalf of the Empire Club, we wish you a safe and joyful holiday season. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.